was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that.
Our ability to defend our rights is only as potent as the culture standing up for it. And as you guys who watch the channel know, I've talked about this before, a strong gun culture is maybe more important than having the government and politicians recognize our right to defend ourselves. And so today I want to talk about how the gun, in this case the AR, has been a big part of the Rittenhouse trial from the very beginning and has taken on a bigger role recently. I was actually at the Big Daddy Unlimited Epic Shoot in Georgia, which was awesome, last week, and had some really good conversations about guns and gun culture with a lot of the guys there. So hopefully we'll be adding those conversations to the channel soon for you all to watch. So let's dive into this. And before we get going, I just want to sort of mention there is a lot of supreme content on social media, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere, about so basically breaking down the case and giving you the truth about what's happening and not have it being spun through the corporate press. That's not what I want to do today. I sort of want to talk about a couple different things with regards to, how guns are talked about and how gun laws are used against us in a way that may not be necessarily obvious. From the very beginning, the corporate press has been obsessing about what gun laws they thought might have been broken. So what's that look like? They were asking, was he old enough to have a gun? Did he cross state lines with that gun? Did he have a license for it? Was the magazine in his rifle legal or illegal? Can you open carry a rifle in that state? And they went on sort of forever on that. So right there, you sort of see a big reason why we need to oppose all gun control. From big stuff like gun bans and background checks to the little things, relatively little things, like magazine capacity limits and licenses. I've actually written about this, about what I call the petty tyranny of license laws. And what I wrote in this article is that we're told these laws are designed to keep us safe, right? That's the public reason. But in reality, these laws are methods to control not the weapon, but the individual. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on, towards the end of this video, but it's actually leverage they can use against us. So as I wrote then, those opposed to what Rittenhouse had done tried to damage him in the court of public opinion by claiming he had broken some laws pertaining to the possession of firearms. But what they were really saying is, because the state of Wisconsin had not given Rittenhouse a license to carry or own a firearm to defend himself, he must be in the wrong. So that's the connection they want to make, is not, whether or not it was okay for him to defend himself. They don't want to get there because they know what the answer is and they don't like it. They need to tackle him on process fouls. And so that's a big part of opposing gun control, is those process fouls can be just as dangerous as, adjudicating whether or not somebody was right to defend themselves. And so the corporate press was able to sidestep the big issues by focusing on the technical minutia of whether or not Rittenhouse had actually complied with the permitting system. So, as I wrote in that article, and we'll put a link down below for you guys, licenses are a way for the state to decide which rights a person can exercise and which ones they cannot. When a government has the power to approve or deny a right, the citizen immediately loses the upper hand on that government. When the government could do this to you, right, the federal government, the state government, you immediately become politically weaker in the face of that government. So what's basically happened is they get leverage over you, right? So now you're no longer arguing to get rid of something like, NFA, or you're no longer arguing to have something like constitutional carry or concealed carry reciprocity around the country. You don't get to argue about that stuff because they've got these little process crimes that they can hit you with. So now you've got to argue against those sometimes before you can get to the more substantive stuff. So they know what they're doing. It's an attempt to gain leverage over the American citizen. The second part of this sort of goes to the ignorance of the prosecutors in this trial. And unfortunately, a lot of our friends and family that we talk about with guns all the time, I'm sure you guys have seen, this prosecutor in the case, talking about, this exploding bullet idea. No relation to the magic bullet in the JFK case.
Hollow point bullets are designed to hit the animal that they're being shot at, let's say a deer, for example, and explode inside that body, correct?
No, I don't think so.
He said the words exploding bullet like that actually meant something. What he's really doing there, and as ignorant as he is about Second Amendment issues, he has to know exploding bullet isn't a thing that the average guy uses. So they're trying to demonize the ammo and the rifle that it's compatible with. It has actually nothing to do with the ammo that he was using in and of itself. It's about making an emotional connection, right? We see this all the time. The Giffords guys do this, the March for Our Lives, politicians do this all the time. They want to equate, the ammo and the rifle that it goes to with murderous, evil intent on behalf of the people who use those rifles. He was doing sort of a sneaky rhetorical trick here, and they do this all the time with gun control in general. You're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't. If the prosecution, as they did say, he used Full Metal Jacket in his rifle, or that the intent of a Full Metal Jacket is to go right through its intended target. Therefore, Rittenhouse wanted to not only kill what was in front of him, but everything and everyone who was behind him. But, if he had used hollow points, they would be, using garbage language about that's a bullet designed for the sole purpose of killing, or armor-piercing bullets, right? And we see this stuff happen all the time. And, this again goes to, the important point of the state having leverage over you. When they can legislate the types of ammunition that you can or cannot have in your firearm, they have a point of leverage over you. We've seen this in states that have had bans on hollow point ammunition. New Jersey sort of famously with that. You're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And at one point in the trial, the prosecutor was trying to suggest, and this goes, right to the heart of the matter on the AR-15, that Rittenhouse specifically brought his rifle because it's able to kill more people than a handgun. We all know that largely due to gang violence and crime, handguns take more lives than rifles. Going after the black rifle is only going to play on people's emotions and their lack of knowledge of what rifles are used for and how they're used, every day in this country. For what it's worth, they are used to save lives a lot more often than they're used to take them. There was a wonderful exchange that Rittenhouse had a rifle because the law said he was too young to own a handgun. He's under 21, so no handgun. And again, this is an important point about how the law is used against people. The law restricts the rights of younger Americans by hoisting these laws on them, and then a prosecutor can use those laws against you in court. Right? We don't just fight this stuff because it's unconstitutional on its face, or it makes it more difficult for you to exercise your rights, right? Like, we don't like licenses because it's more hoops to jump through, and it disenfranchises all kinds of people. We fight these things because when it comes down to it, they'll use these laws against you if it ever comes down to, an unfortunate position where you need to use a firearm to defend your life. So bringing this back to what I talked about a little earlier, anytime a state or a federal government restricts our rights by requiring licenses, not only is it really about control, but it's about using those petty licensing laws against us. There's a big difference between something that's outlawed because it's objectively wrong, like theft, and something that's outlawed because a legally recognized entity like a government says it's outlawed, like magazines over 10 rounds, for instance. In fact, I pulled a clip of one of my favorite movies where that principle is best explained.
Now, you could argue that the shooting of the dog was merely an instance of malum prohibitum, but the shooting of a senator is indubitably an instance of malum se.
Malum what?
Malum se. The distinction is between an act that is wrong in itself and an act that is wrong only according to our laws and mores. It is Latin.
I hate gun control. Not only does it weaken us politically and physically vis-a-vis the government, but as those laws stack up and we need more and more licenses and permissions to exercise our rights, it becomes easier for people like this prosecutor, Thomas Binger, and the corporate press to create a narrative and drown out the real issues. So much of what they want to talk about is not whether or not, he was justified to defend his life. Actually, if you watch the case, the prosecutor tried to insert as much extraneous information that was more process-related. With the addition of more laws, it will become harder for Americans to justify and move past a legal self-defense shooting when the state can just keep throwing more technical charges at you, more process crimes. It actually wouldn't surprise me if the prosecution once again, like so many others before them, tries to make the AR a centerpiece of that closing and continue to demonize it and use emotion to really get at the jury, which, if you've been watching the case like I have, it looks like it's open and shut.